Oh, my dears, gather round, because today we're pulling back the velvet curtains on a royal saga that truly beggars belief. We're talking about a prince who, for what felt like an eternity, wielded his privilege like a blunt instrument, treating those who served him with an open, almost theatrical contempt, and for what felt like, just as long, the hallowed halls of the palace simply looked the other way. But now, with titles stripped, a beloved home confiscated, and the ominous shadow of a criminal investigation looming, the long-suffering staff have finally found the courage to utter that most revolutionary of words, no. Can you even imagine? This isn't just a story. It's a slow-burn drama of a man born into unimaginable luxury who somehow managed to alienate almost every single soul ever tasked with his service. And what happens when the impenetrable shield he'd always counted on, the one made of royal favor and ancient tradition, simply evaporates? Prepare yourselves, because we're about to dive into the astonishing, often infuriating, tale of Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's spectacular fall from grace. Now, we all know the Epstein scandal dragged Andrew's name through the very public mud, staining it with an indelible mark of disgrace. That, my friends, was the global earthquake. But long before those devastating headlines broke within the hushed, gilded confines of palace walls, his reputation was already utterly toxic. It had been brewing for years, a slow-acting poison that eroded any goodwill. Fast forward to 2025, and two absolutely explosive books ripped the silken curtain completely back, revealing the stark, often horrifying, reality of life for those unfortunate enough to be in his employ. First up, we have Andrew Lowney, a meticulous historian who spent a staggering 4 years excavating the truth for his biography, aptly entitled, The Rise and Fall of the House of York. This man wasn't just casually chatting. He was filing Freedom Information requests like a seasoned detective and conducting interviews with over 100 individuals who had, until then, remained stubbornly silent. Then there's Tom Quinn, who took a slightly different yet equally revealing path with his tome, Yes, Ma'am, The Secret Life of Royal Servants. Quinn delved deep, drawing on hundreds of candid conversations with both former and current palace staff members. And what did these two exhaustive investigations conclude? Well, my dears, they arrived at precisely the same, utterly unflattering destination. Not a single page offered a kind word. Quinn's sources, their voices probably still trembling with indignation, painted a portrait of Andrew as imperious, bossy, and possessed of a truly foul temper. Some former servants, perhaps still smarting from past encounters, went even further, branding him a classic schoolyard bully, the kind who delights in making others miserable. Lowney, not one to mince words, accused the prince of a litany of cruel behaviors, outright bullying, peppering his staff with profanities, and making demands that were, quite frankly, impossible to meet. Imagine this, if you will. Colin Burgess, a former equerry to the beloved Queen Mother herself, recounted to Lowney an incident that perfectly encapsulates Andrew's unique brand of imperiousness. Burgess recalled a visit to Clarence's house, where Andrew, with all the grace of a drill sergeant, simply pointed at an object and barked, "Rap it!" The sheer insolence, the utter disregard for basic decorum, left Burgess feeling a volcanic surge of anger, admitting he felt like he wanted to knock him out. And the prince's go-to command, his signature, if you will, always the same two chilling words, "Do it!" Burgess described it as Andrew's almost constant refrain, a chilling catchphrase that echoed through the corridors. And what made this behavior even more galling, even more glaringly offensive, was the stark contrast with other members of the royal family. While King Charles, for instance, treated the Queen Mother's staff with a warmth and respect that bordered on companionable, Andrew, it seems, viewed them as nothing more than automatons. They existed solely to serve his every whim, never ever to question his actions. A profound difference in worldview, wouldn't you agree? Now, let's delve into some of the truly specific incidents that surfaced from these revelatory books, because, honestly, they border on the utterly absurd. Picture this. Every single morning, Andrew would insist that maids painstakingly climb 4 flights of stairs just to draw open his curtains, all while he lay comfortably in bed, mere feet from the window. The sheer, lazy audacity. On another occasion, in the dead of night, he actually dragged a television technician to his home, demanding that the poor man explain the intricate workings of a remote control. A remote control, as if it were a matter of national security. Out on the pristine greens of the golf course, he would summon his dedicated protection officer, not for security, but to pick up his golf balls after he'd smacked them down the fairway. And back inside the grand residences, he would habitually drop used tissues on the floor, fully expecting some unseen hand to magically appear and collect his discarded detritus. These weren't just isolated incidents, they were a pattern, a deeply ingrained habit of expecting the world to bend to his every trivial desire. And then, my dears, came the staffing decisions that truly defied all logic, making you wonder if a touch of madness had crept into the royal household. Tom Quinn, bless his investigative soul, revealed that Andrew once had a staff member transferred to a different department simply because he disliked a mole on the man's face. A mole! Another unfortunate soul was reassigned to entirely different duties for the unforgivable crime of wearing a nylon tie. Sources whispering to Ray Day Online confirmed that his protection officers, those stoic guardians, walked on eggshells around him, terrified of incurring his wrath. Why? Because he obsessed over the most trivial matters, with people being summarily reassigned for offences as minor as wearing the wrong aftershave. The mind, as they say, boggles, but none, and I mean none, of these tales quite compare to the legendary teddy bear situation. Oh yes, you heard me correctly. Multiple independent sources confirmed that Andrew, a grown man, a veteran of the Falklands War no less, kept a rather extensive collection of stuffed toys on his bed. Many of these cuddly companions, believe it or not, were even dressed in miniature sailor suits. And here's the kicker. Staff were not only required to arrange them, but to follow a laminated diagram showing the precise exact placement of each and every bear. Getting the arrangement wrong, even by a millimeter, meant being subjected to a torrent of shouting and verbal abuse. Charlotte Briggs, a former maid, revealed the truly astonishing fact that she received an entire day of dedicated training solely on the intricate art of bear arrangement. She would then spend up to 30 minutes each evening, meticulously positioning these plush toys, ensuring they adhered to the prince's exacting, frankly bizarre specifications. A grown man, a man who had faced actual combat, obsessed over teddy bears. It's a detail so exquisitely absurd it's almost poetic. Now, one of the most outspoken critics of Andrew's behaviour to emerge from the shadows was Paul Page, who served as a Royal Protection Officer from 1998 to 2004. Page, with a mixture of frustration and righteous indignation, confirmed that he had personally filed no fewer than 3 separate complaints to the palace regarding Andrew's utterly unacceptable conduct, and he knew of at least a dozen more from his beleaguered colleagues. The outcome of these formal grievances? Not a single one led to any action whatsoever. Page, with a sigh that probably echoed years of suppressed exasperation, explained the chilling reality. Senior courtiers, desperate to avoid any agitation, any ripple in the placid waters of royal life, simply ignored everything. Andrew, in his infinite wisdom, would routinely hurl profane names at his protection staff. The officers, in turn, developed their own coping mechanism, giving Andrew an extremely vulgar nickname of their own, because in their collective experience, he managed to upset everyone he encountered. Now, in the interest of full disclosure and journalistic integrity, it's worth acknowledging a piece of relevant context here. Paul Page was later convicted of fraud in 2009 and sentenced to 6 years in prison. That's a fact that must be presented. However, and this is crucial, his specific claims about Andrew's truly appalling behaviour have, over the years, been consistently backed up by multiple entirely independent sources. So while his personal history is noted, it doesn't entirely invalidate the chorus of complaints against the prince. So the burning question remains, doesn't it? Why? Oh, why? Did the palace tolerate this utterly insufferable behaviour for so long? The answer, my dears, boils down to one incredibly simple yet devastating fact. Andrew was for many years the Queen's favourite son, and anyone who dared to raise concerns, to question his actions, risked being immediately labelled a troublemaker, or worse, losing their coveted position entirely. A former staffer, speaking with a weary resignation, explained the insidious cycle. Andrew would simply run to his mother, complaining that everyone was being nasty to him. And that, my friends, is how the system, the ancient protective royal machine, kept shielding him, kept enabling him, right up until the very moment it simply could not anymore. And that moment, that glorious, long-awaited reckoning, finally arrived in February of 2026. The hammer fell. After King Charles, with a decisiveness that many had longed for, stripped Andrew of his remaining royal titles, and perhaps even more symbolically, evicted him from the grand, sprawling royal lodge, the prince found himself unceremoniously relocated. His new abode, the much more modest wood farm cottage on the Sandringham estate. Within days the whispers started, growing into a roar of reports that the estate staff had, effectively, gone on strike. This wasn't a formal picket line, mind you, but a quiet, powerful refusal. They had been told mercifully that they did not have to serve Andrew if they felt uncomfortable, and a large, significant number of them immediately, unequivocally, declined. One source, speaking with a bluntness that cut through the usual royal niceties, described Andrew as a total pariah. Even his own loyal staff from Royal Lodge, the ones who had endured his whims for years, refused to follow him to Norfolk. Instead, they were offered generous redundancy terms, a golden handshake to escape his orbit. A skeleton staff at best was all that remained, and one source with a profound sense of irony put it bluntly, saying that for the first time in his pampered life, Andrew might have actually been a zero. He was, astonishingly, just like the rest of us. But even then, even stripped of his power, his titles, his home, Andrew, bless his oblivious heart, simply could not read the room. Despite having lost every single vestige of his royal status, he reportedly instructed his remaining, dwindling staff to address him as Sir. And, in a move of truly breathtaking audacity, he allegedly tried to make it appear as though King Charles himself had issued that demand. Which, of course, was not true. People close to the estate, shaking their heads in disbelief, said the whole thing made him look like a man desperately, pathetically clinging to the old ways, a ghost haunting his own diminished reality. A former courtier with a weary sigh confirmed the devastating impact. Staff morale had utterly collapsed. As we stand in 2026, the saga continues. Andrew is currently preparing to move into Marsh Farm, his new permanent residence on the sprawling Sandringham estate. His entourage? A mere chef and a valet, that's it. Meanwhile, the misconduct in public office investigation, which followed his arrest in February, a truly historic event, making him the first senior British royal to face arrest in nearly 400 years, continues its slow, grinding pace. Someone who knows the Sandringham estate intimately, someone who understands its rhythms and its people, summed up the situation with perfect clarity. It is going to be a lonely life for him, they mused, because it is a working farm with people always around, but they are staff. And Andrew is not someone who has a track record of being friendly with servants. And there, my dears, you have it. After a lifetime of barking orders, of dropping used tissues with casual disdain, of demanding that the entire world arrange itself to his exact, often ludicrous specifications, Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor finally, irrevocably, ran out of people willing to do it. The game, it seems, is well and truly over.